What's up, everybody? It's Pykel, and that was a long day of League of Legends. I wasn't able to watch all of it live. I haven't watched every single one of these games, but we're going to go through some of the scoreboards, go through the results, and then think about tomorrow. As you know, I work a full-time job. I can't watch every single game in real time. My company closed on 2 different properties today. Great success. But we're back at it making another video for League of Legends. Disclaimer, yes, I will be talking negatively about some of these professional players and teams. It doesn't mean that I think that I am better at playing League of Legends than any of these players or teams, but I do think that my perspective, for betting reasons, is profitable over time. So if that interests you, then you should watch the rest of this video. Let's start in the LPL. So, first up, we had LGD against FPX. I think almost everyone was on the FPX side of this, which is totally fine. I did think that there was going to be lower kill scores because of the jungle matchup specifically in Game 2. That did not play out that way. One other thing that I mentioned in Discord yesterday is that I do think that at a certain point in the metagame, when you're seeing a lot of drafts being similar, you get to the point where if your team that you're betting on consistently gives up Corki, then you need to stop until they stop, because Corki, although it doesn't have a 100% win rate, it just does stupid stuff. The amount of damage that Corki is putting out right now is just stupid. So it's just not. It's just so stupid. So what you hope for is that if your team does give up Corki, they have a plan to deal with it. If they don't have a plan to deal with it and they get slapped around in back-to-back games by the same champion, then you really need to reconsider betting on them in the next match, or until they kind of show a better understanding of the draft, because it's just really frustrating to lose games that way. So this is the result everybody expected. I don't need to spend much more time talking about it, but I mean, giving up 30 kills in the second game feels bad, man. Not really an indication of like, oh, they're horrible, but whatever. Just move on. OMG against Anyone's Legends. I had a lot of OMG last night. Let me see if I have my lineups over here. So last night I made about 10 lineups, so I had a small loss. Let's bring it up. So I had a slight loss yesterday. My best lineup was an OMG primary stack with Gala from RNG, and then I took 2 players from T1. The reason I took the 2 players from T1 is because I thought that they had a higher chance of going 2-0. They did not go 2-0, but they still performed pretty well. 73 from a support and 70 from the team slot is pretty good. I was about 18 points out of first place. So Cream, I guess Cream was the better captain. Let's just do that. I don't remember which one it was. I guess it doesn't really matter. The second one. So this was my best lineup from yesterday. So I ran Abel captain. They had Cream. I had Shanji, Shala, who only scored 4 more points. We both had Aki. Cream outscored Gory. Abel outscored Gala. And then Cold slightly outscored Keria. So it's a good thing to kind of look at, because the game not played bonus is something that we want, but it's not something that we need. So even if it's a close matchup and you think to yourself that game that they lose will potentially be a bloody game, then you don't really need to worry as much about the game not played bonus. But on nights where there are a lot of 2-0s specifically being projected, then you kind of do want the most the highest odds for a sure thing, and I thought that T1 was that last night. But it didn't work out that way. They have some weird stinky performances from time to time, and I think dropping a game against Frederick Brion, while it's obviously not going to give up any games from a standings perspective yet, unless there's like a tiebreaker situation in the future, it happens. So you can't kind of put too much stock into that. But back into this game, so we got Cream on Akali, and Cream on Akali is what we want to see because that's exactly what makes us like him so much long term. Akali is not the most difficult champion in the world to play, but it does have a higher mechanical skill cap than a lot of the other champions that we see. And then in Game 2, they traded Victor Corki, which is concerning, but they ended up winning the game anyways. It looks like it was a super close game and that it was like a comeback. I did watch parts of this game while I was in the office, and I watched the highlights. Somebody mentioned to me, like, hey, you should check out the game. Abel played out of his mind. And I do think that Abel did a good job, but if you take a look at the game, most of what he was doing was not outside of what you'd expect a professional AD carry to be able to do, which is a good thing. Like, it's a good thing because we have questions about Abel. He's not a player that we're very familiar with. So that, at the very least, is a good thing. But I don't want to give him too much credit. His team composition was built around him. Rumble's giving a lot of AoE support. Jarvan's helping out engage. Victor is also a threat because if you overextend to try to get onto the Jinx, you're just going to put yourself in a vulnerable position against the Victor. And then Thresh is obviously, just a very good support champion. But let's move to the next matchup. We had RNG and JDG, and this is a spot where I knew that Kanavi would give them chances to win a game, so I think I did actually recommend betting them plus 1.5 for plus 1.5 maps. So they had an Akshan game. That's pretty interesting from them. They got Corki and lost. Not a great sign. Kanavi had an okay performance and a loss. In the win, the Corki was actually banned out. Kanavi had a legit game. So that's the kind of game where you watch and you realize how good Kanavi is. Anyone who has any doubts about Kanavi, I would say watch that game, because that's who he is. Like, that's the type of player that we expect to see in most matches. But again, RNG was the expected winner. I'm not shocked that it happened like that. I wanted to make myself open to the possibility that JDG could pull out a game and also theoretically pull off the upset, but it's not really expected. That's not what we're looking for. So let's look at tomorrow's games. I'm not going to bring it up on DraftKings. So we have the lineups. Let me get those actually. There were some changes. I think Flandre is not playing, which is somewhat surprising. Yeah. So it's Thunder Talk against EDG. The money line is out of control. It's minus 2,910. And Thunder Talk is plus 1,400. So I know some of you probably still don't know what that means. It means that in order to win $100 on this match, you need to bet $2,910 on EDG, which is hilarious. Like, I don't know if I've ever seen a line that big in any sport or in anything. So new Frigid Captain Puff Southwind against Xiaoshang, Jai Jai, Scout Viper Mako. I don't really care if Flandre is playing or not. EDG is probably taking this as an opportunity to get one of their younger players some stage time. I don't know if there are other things going on with Flandre and the team right now. Maybe there's something brewing, but I would be surprised if that's the case, especially coming off of a World Championship. And there was nothing in their match against JDG, I think, that should force this kind of move. So I wouldn't put too much into it outside of them feeling confident they're going to get the win. And to be honest, in this scenario, you might actually want to fade Xiaoshang in some of your lineups if you're making stacks, just with the thought that if they manage to lose the first game, does EDG swap back in Flandre, thinking to themselves, well, we can't possibly lose to these people. Let's throw our starter back in. So that's a question that I would have. That would make me want to limit my exposure to Xiaoshang specifically, not necessarily EDG. In the second game, we have Top Esports against Ultra Prime. So Top Esports is coming off of a loss to Rare Atom, which was surprising. Top Esports is minus 597. Ultra Prime is plus 425. I do like Ultra Prime from a talent perspective. I don't like them more than I like Top Esports, but it should be another competitive spot. I think that Ultra Prime is comparable to Rare Atom. They just have very different play styles, I think. So theoretically, you kind of can see where Ultra Prime has chances to win a game, or even potentially make the upset. ZS against Zoom. Zoom is obviously the better player, the more well-known player. Xiaopeng against Hacker. Xiaopeng is coming in for Tian. I'm not sure why they're moving on from Tian outside of the fact that he had a bad performance and has had kind of bad performances somewhat regularly in the past year. So that's not shocking to me. Knight against Cryan. Knight is better than Cryan. People wanted me to think that Cryan was like super good, and now everybody's kind of flipped and says that he's super bad. Well, actually, maybe that's not true, but the positivity is not in full force anymore. And he is kind of a one-dimensional player in many ways, but he can play Corki, so it's going to force Top Esports to either ban Corki or have a plan for it. Knight is definitely the kind of player who can outplay Corki. I'm not afraid of that necessarily, but we'll see how they deal with it. Then we have Jackie Love and Zhuo against Elk and Xiaoxi, and this is a spot where I actually think that Elk and Xiaoxi can definitely just outright win the lane. They play a lot of aggressive hook champions for Xiaoxi, and Elk is a legitimate 80 carry, so I think that there are definitely winning opportunities for Ultra Prime. I do want exposure to them on DraftKings because if they do manage to win, even if they go 1-2, they could still theoretically be the best primary stack. If the other games are close, I could see Ultra Prime against Top Esports being a very high kill score series. So I do want exposure to Top Esports. I do want exposure to Ultra Prime. It depends on salaries and how you can fit them together with other teams. So we'll take a look at that. Well, you should take a look at that when you're building your lineups. I'm not going to do that in this video. And then last but not least, we have LNG against Rare Atom. So LNG beat Ultra Prime earlier. Rare Atom beat Top Esports earlier. So can Rare Atom pull off another upset? I think it's possible, but I think stylistically this is a bad matchup for Rare Atom because they want to kind of slow the game down and force the person in the losing position to have to make aggressive plays. I don't think that it's as likely for them to get an early game or mid game lead against LNG, which is that's what you kind of need for the playstyle that they have, because LNG has the exact same playstyle, and I think that LNG is just better in basically every spot. I prefer Ale to Cube. I prefer Tarzan to Leon. I prefer Do and B to Strive. I prefer Light and Lumao to iBoy and Zora. I'm just not going to be on Rare Atom. I'm never on them, so I'm not going to change now. Just from a talent perspective, I don't like them, and stylistically, I think that they don't match up well against LNG because they play the same style, so LNG is a better version of Rare Atom, in my opinion. That's it for the LPL. Let's go to the LCK. So first up, DRX against Gen G. This match happened last night. This is the kind of spot where I'm obligated to play DRX because since I believe in their talent long term, I need to get exposure to them every single time that they play. Obviously, against Gen G, it's a very difficult matchup. My pick was still Gen G in Discord, but everybody knows my thoughts on DRX. But this is the kind of thing that I'm talking about. If you're DRX and you're blue side and you're not playing Corki and you don't have a response to Corki outside of Victor and you opt into this generic matchup and lose consistently, then you have to change what you're going to allow happen in the mid lane. Putting Zika on something like Victor is not going to allow him to outplay Chovy. Period. maybe there are not many matchups where you would anticipate Zika being able to outplay Chovy to begin with. So why would you opt into a matchup that you know is break even at best? It just doesn't make sense to me. It's not. It's a lot easier said than done to get a better draft out of it than what I'm saying right here. But this is the kind of thing that looks bad, and you should not allow it to happen. You just shouldn't allow it to happen. There's not many other ways to say that. You either agree with that or you disagree with that. The reason I think that is the right way to think about it and look at it is because if you're already the underdog, then why play things straight up? You're obviously not as good as them straight up. Make something happen. Play something unique. Try to create a draft advantage. And in that matchup, they were clearly not. In that game, they were not going to create a draft advantage like that. In the second game, I mean, same thing. I just don't want to see Corki on the other team. Gen G is most likely going to get an advantage against you in the early game, which is just going to make it almost impossible to play against. Like, if they're set up around a dragon and you have to walk into Gen G, then Corki's going to keep shooting you in the face with rockets. It's just kind of silly. So, kind of upsetting. I hope it's not another BLG situation where Zika is on a team that's incompetent from a coaching perspective. There are a lot of teams that will end up doing this. So you might say to yourself, well, Pikel, if all these professional teams are drafting like this, then how do we separate the incompetent coaching from the competent coaching? And I think that if you see a team that's a favorite and is a deserved favorite giving up Corki, it's because they think that they can outplay it and they have a plan. If you're an underdog and you give up Corki, we don't have any reason to be confident in your ability to create a game plan that is going to counter something like Corki. That's kind of the nuts and bolts of it. So that's basically it for Gen G DRX. Then the next match was Fredit Brion against T1. So in game one, Fredit Brion won. So Morgan beat Zeus in lane. That's always a possibility. Zeus has not looked great so far, from what I've seen. I don't feel supremely confident in him yet. Umti against Owner, Lava against Faker, Henna, Gumayusi, Delight, Keria. So Corki just made it through the pick ban phase, which is somewhat surprising. Game 2, Corki just made it through again, so some teams don't even think that it's like worth picking. You see that a decent amount from teams like teams in Korea in general, actually. And this is what I'm talking about. So T1 had a plan to deal with Corki. They picked Vex, number 5 overall. So now, as time goes on, you're going to see more and more teams play Vex into Corki because they think to themselves, okay, well, if T1 is doing it, there must be something about this matchup that allows Vex to outplay Corki's oppression. And this is what they did. So that's probably the biggest benefit you get from watching multiple regions and watching good teams from multiple regions come up with different ways to attack common champions. So that's kind of what you expect from T1. T1 always has champions at their disposal that other teams just don't, because a lot of other teams just copy what the good teams do. And a lot of times you need to copy what the good teams do and understand why they're doing it. The understanding why they do it is the hard part. So that's it for that. Let's talk about the... So I had Gen G in that. So we can talk about the games for tomorrow. So tomorrow we have Nongshim against Live Sandbox, and we have the Kwangdong Freaks against KT. These lines actually kind of surprised me. I want to get the rosters up in front of me real quick. So we have Nongshim. So we have Kana, Dread, BDD, Ghost, and Effort up against Live Sandbox, Dove, Kroko, Closer, Envy, and Kale. And Live Sandbox just pulled off the upset against DRX, so I have a slightly higher opinion of them. Nongshim is coming off of a loss. Nongshim just lost in an upset to Hanwha Life. Kwangdong Freaks lost to T1. KT Roaster lost to Damwon. So you don't have the same kind of surprise for that other matchup. So Keen against Rascal, very close. LM against Cuz, two former teammates going up against each other. Fate against Arya, two relatively good mid laners. People are more familiar with Fate because Fate is from the LCK. Arya played in the LJL last year, I think. Teddy against Aiming, two good AD carries. Hoyt against Life, two decent supports. So I kind of see why the money line is close. I was just a little surprised that Kwangdong was the favorite. I think that in this spot, I'm definitely willing to play KT Rolster and pick KT Rolster. So, and the reason is because the name recognition from the side of Kwangdong Freaks is just so much higher. I'm fine with taking a matchup that the sportsbook is essentially telling you that it is a 50-50. I'll take the extra value off of KT and just hope that they're able to make it a very competitive series. And that's basically it for that one. Nongshim against Live Sandbox. I didn't expect Live Sandbox to be the favorite. I do think that Nongshim is better than Live Sandbox. I think that Live Sandbox can definitely take games off of Nongshim and potentially beat them because Hanwha Life just beat Nongshim. But you don't want to put too much weight into that because everybody runs the risk of having a bad game. Kana is a very good top laner. Dove has lane swapped over. I think that Kana is more likely to exploit Dove than Kingen was to exploit Dove. Dread against Kroko. I do think that Dread's the better player. BDD against Closer. I think that BDD is the better player still, but Closer is an up-and-coming mid laner, so would you be totally shocked if Closer was able to pull off a win against BDD? I wouldn't. And then Envy and Kale against Ghost and Effort. I still do think that Ghost is overrated. So maybe this is a spot where you kind of have to get some exposure to Live Sandbox. I would also... Another way to approach that is just limiting your Nongshim exposure, especially in the team slot, if you don't feel comfortable with them getting a 2-0. That's interesting. We already did the LPL. Let's go to the LEC. So this... I saw in Discord that Vitality was losing to Mad Lions, and obviously that was not good for me because I'm very high on Vitality long term, and in my lineups, like this is, I guess this is probably a good thing for everybody to see because I'm not just saying that I like Vitality and that I'll bet money on them and I'm just talking about it. I do bet in line with my thoughts. Like it's what you have to do. You don't really have a choice in the matter. You have to make bets and lineups that you believe in. I do that. So you might say to yourself, oh man, I can't believe you have that opinion. You're wrong. That's so stupid. But that causes me sometimes to lose, and it also causes me sometimes to win in other spots that people don't see. So you got to take the good with the bad. And I just blanked on this slate, which is totally fine. It's a spot that I'm going to continue to go after because I think that they're just better. Like I just think that their team the individual talent of all of these players is so high. I'm not willing to give up on that after one game. You will have people questioning it, and that's why their money line is the way that it is for tomorrow. But so the 5 games from today were Mad Lions beating Vitality, which I was on the wrong side of that one. SK against Rogue. Rogue won. I had that one. G2 beating XL. I had that one. G2 had a good game, and Broken Blade apparently was dominant. Misfits against Astralis, same thing, and then Fnatic against BDS, same thing. I had all that, which I'm not saying that's like impressive. It's that's the expectation. So for the most part, the day went as we expected. I got 4 out of 5 right, but the one that I got wrong hurt because that's the one that I was all in on DraftKings basically. From a ownership perspective, let's see what their ownership was like. Vitality. Yeah, so the ownership was very high for Vitality, and that was one of the only reasons I think why you could justify going against it. I wonder what Mad Lions ownership was like. Sure. 12, 15. Wow. Okay. So mid-teens. Um. So let's just look at the draft real quick. I know a lot of people were criticizing Vitality for the draft that they had. I can see why. I hate Jin. I just hate Jin. Um, Akshan. Is the Akshan against Yasuo matchup that good? Um, that's a good combo. Diana Yasuo, very good. Um, this is the kind of matchup that doesn't impact me very much and will make me want to play against Mad Lions more because coming off of such a high profile win, you will get people people way too excited in my opinion. So that's probably going to incentivize me to go against Mad Lions even more than I already am. Rogue against SK Gaming, low kill score game. Comp 9-2-5, not surprising. We got a Vex game. That's pretty cool. Another Jin loss. That makes me happy. G2 against XL. Okay, so we have another Corki top. So Viper actually played Corki top today in the LCS. LCS is still going on. But yeah, that's basically it. Not much to say there. It's the expected outcome. Misfits against Astralis. We have another Diana jungle. Diana Yasuo might just be popular at this point. Get another Vex. A Jin 1. That's not great for me personally. And then, of course, Jin wins again in the last game. Adam pulling out another Darius. So it's relatively close. I mean, BDS kept it competitive. All right, so that's it for yesterday. Well, I guess today in the LEC. Let's talk about the games for tomorrow. So XL against BDS, two teams that lost. XL lost to G2 and gave up 27 kills. So we have Finn against Adam. I prefer Adam. We have Syncroft against Marcoon. Probably prefer Marcoon. Nuke Duck against Nuclear Int. I prefer Nuclear Int. Nuke Duck is garbage. Somebody said on like the preseason LEC rankings, like Nuke Duck is still good. I'm like, get the hell out of here. He's not. He's really not good. He's really not. Patrick against X Maddie. I'd probably prefer Patrick, and then Limit against Advian. Probably a break even for me. I think that. What are the odds here? 117. 117 is not great, but I think that if you're chasing underdogs all the time and you're betting on underdogs in like 50-50s, that's interesting. I wonder if betting on an underdog that's better in the early game performs better than betting on underdog, like short underdogs, like underdogs that are very close to a projected 50-50. Because that's one thing that I do think we need to take into consideration is like how the teams match up. BDS is the team that's more aggressive in the early game, and I think that they're probably good enough to close out a game. I don't know if this game was the result of a comeback. It doesn't look like it. So yeah, I mean, I think that BDS has a real shot. I'm gonna not disclose who I'll officially pick here, but I do think that both teams are definitely live, and for DraftKings purposes, you probably want to get exposure to XL more than BDS because BDS seems like a team that if they were losing, they would fight back. If XL is losing, I feel like they're less likely to fight back and give up a ton of kills. But they did just give up 27 kills to G2 Esports. Maybe that'll artificially inflate BDS. These are the mental games we play. This is the game that we play. Let's go to the next match. Rogue against Misfits. So, today, Misfits beat Astralis. That means absolutely nothing. And Rogue beat SK Gaming. That means absolutely nothing. 13-14, 15-8. Getting an Ornn is interesting. I think I'm probably going to be on Rogue here. So, Otoamne against Hyrit. They're both pretty good. Malrong against Zlatan. I prefer Malrong. Until... Yeah, there's no reason to not. Larson against Vetio. I think I still prefer Larson. Some people are starting to get off the Larson train. And then Comp and Trimby against Neon and Mersa. I prefer Comp and Trimby. And their willingness to go for like a Jinx instead of a Jhin, or at least the fact that they've done it that way so far, makes me want to play them even more because I just prefer that side of the matchup like always. So it's probably a rogue for me. Mad Lions against SK Gaming. This isn't the spot where I want to get different and play SK Gaming. SK Gaming up against Rogue. I don't really care that they lost to Rogue. They were supposed to. So there's not really much of a need to go through that game. It's pretty straightforward. G2 against Astralis. Same thing. I'm not picking Astralis against G2. Could they win? Sure. Is it going to happen very often? No. Do I think it'll happen 27% of the time? Probably not. Probably not. Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. Who banned Corki? No one banned Corki. Okay, that's fine. Then we have Fnatic against Vitality. Fnatic's minus 157 favorite against Vitality. That's very surprising to me. I wonder if the line flipped after the first day, and if you can find out that piece of information and it's like a 30 to 40 point swing, that means that the sportsbook thinks that Vitality is going to be better long term, but because of the amount of action they're getting on Fnatic, it's pushing that direction. That makes me want to be on Vitality even more because it means that you're aligned with the sportsbook, and historically, the sportsbooks win money. So you want to stay on the sportsbooks side as much as possible. If you told me the opposite was true, I'd be very surprised. If you said, Vitality opened up as like a 160 underdog and the line got pushed to 129, like I don't think that's what happened. I think it's more likely that the line was either closer or flipped and went towards Fnatic, because I would think that and this is without any information from a sportsbook, I would think that League of Legends bettors specifically are prone to recent performances, just like every other sport. So if you look lane by lane, Vitality, Wunder against Alphari, when it used to be G2 against Rogue, I would always take the Wunder side because everybody said Alphari is so much better than Wunder, and I think that they're a little bit closer. But I wonder if, after a year and a half has passed and we haven't seen that matchup, is it right to be on Alphari? So that's a question I have. Then we have Selfmade against Razork. I prefer Selfmade by a somewhat decent margin. Perks against Humanoid. I prefer Perks. I can't even explain how much I prefer Perks to Humanoid. And that's another thing. Somebody was talking about Humanoid on that same podcast, and he was saying one of the best, like the best mid laner in LEC or something, and I wanted to punch the screen. Karzi and Labrov against Upset and Hylissang. Fundamentally different. So I do think that stylistically they are just different types of bot lanes. I might even prefer Upset and Hylissang if... Okay, never mind. Another Jhin game. I was going to say, I think that it's possible that the Fnatic side was more likely to play Aphelios or Jinx or something like that. That would be an edge, I think, in my opinion, in that matchup. I would want the team... Like, if you told me that in a game between two random teams, that there's like a Jinx against a Jhin, I would want to be on the Jinx team relative to the odds. So, like, if you told me that an underdog played Jinx and a favorite played Jhin, I would want to be on the underdog more often than I would want to be on them otherwise. So that's it. So, I mean, I'm going Vitality. And then in the LCS, we actually have lines for this day. We didn't have it for the matches on Friday because there were so many Academy players playing and, like, roster uncertainty. The sportsbooks didn't want to, like, post lines that got completely destroyed because of roster information. So we have Team Liquid against Dig, Immortals against CLG, Team Liquid against EG, Immortals against Dig, EG against CLG. Um, big favorite, Immortals against CLG. That one's an interesting we should look at. TL against EG. EG is the underdog. Everybody knows I'm going to be on EG. I don't even have to pretend like I'm not. Immortals against Dig. We should look at that one. And Evil Geniuses against CLG. I'm playing EG. I'm not even going to look at CLG. So let's take a look at both of Immortals matchups. So on Immortals, we have Immortals against CLG. So Revenge against Jenkins, I think is pretty close. Xerxes against Contracts, I think it's pretty close, but I probably prefer the Xerxes side. Power of Evil against Palafox, I prefer the Power of Evil side. Wild Turtle and Destiny against Luger and Poom, I know that I prefer the CLG side. So that one, I think that you should probably bet on CLG because it is relatively close already, and I think that Wild Turtle is very bad. So I would definitely want to bet against Wild Turtle, especially when he's listed as a favorite. Then we have Immortals against Dignitas. So we have Revenge against Fake Gods, pretty close. Xerxes against River. River is probably better. Power of Evil against Blue. Power of Evil is probably better. And then Neo and Biofrost against Wild Turtle and Destiny. I'll take Neo and Biofrost. So in my opinion, I think you should bet CLG, bet Dig, make a parlay CLG Dig, and I think that you're covered for your betting on that tomorrow. I would just, if you want to throw the favorites in there, go ahead. I probably would. But also bet them individually just in case one of them hits, and you can feel happy about that. So I think that's everything for tomorrow. Still the beginning of the season. Still feels good that we have this entire slate. I'm not sick of League of Legends yet because it's only been 3 or 4 days in, and I generally don't get sick of League of Legends Professional League. So that's all I've got for you today. Thanks for watching. Like I've said before, I'm really hoping to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the season. I know that it's a long time to get to that point, and theoretically it could happen earlier, but that's just something that's my long-term goal for the split or the season. And if it happens earlier, fantastic, because that means I could make money off of ads. So again, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.